Record.
Good day. In December of 2019, a disease started in China, somewhere in Wuhan. That disease, later on called COVID-19, just went around and ravaged the whole world. It was a pandemic. It was declared a pandemic by March of 2020 by the World Health Organization. Nobody foresaw it coming. That disease ultimately killed 7 million people. It shut down this world for almost 2 years. Most parts of the world had to close down and shut down to contain the disease, the spread of the disease. And it ruined a lot of people, killed people, and destroyed a lot of businesses. But as that disease went around ravaging literally, both physically and economically, it was also a source of opportunity, ironically. Two companies come to mind. Netflix. Netflix, the global streaming organization, the American streaming organization, became a global force. Everybody stayed at home and everybody was watching Netflix. But another company too that grew to become a global force was also Zoom. Zoom became a streaming service that helped people to stay connected and also helped education. Well, we know that one other company, that was BioNTech, came out with the Pfizer vaccine and became a multi-billion company. So in the midst of COVID-19, a lot of opportunities happened for some companies particularly, but yet there was still a lot of destruction. Something happened a few days ago, and that was the attack in Qatar by Israel. Israel attacked negotiators, Hamas negotiators who were trying to work towards a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas in the Gaza crisis. And while that negotiation was going on in Doha, Israel struck. That strike in Doha galvanized the Qataris, and the Qataris called a meeting, and an emergency meeting. And in that emergency meeting, the whole Arab world showed solidarity. But just like COVID, that attack on Qatar has also become an opportunity. In fact, earlier this year, Israel attacked Iran, and at that after that attack, or during that attack, Pakistan offered that if Israel does use nuclear arms on or nuclear weapons against Iran, they were willing to give their nuclear weapons to Iran to use. But now, Pakistan has finally hit the jackpot. Pakistan has signed a defense pact with none other than Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia, why would you think Saudi Arabia? Well, Saudi Arabia, just like all the countries in the Middle East, have come to see that the Greater Israel Project is one that imperils all of them, not only their monarchies, but also their countries. Because as Israel always says, the whole world should support them because they're the only democracy in the Middle East. But these monarchies are very essential to the stability and well-being of that Middle East. They may have been created out of conflict, but they have lasted and survived for so long, and they want to continue to survive. They now see Israel as a clear and present threat to their survival. Jordan and Saudi Arabia are now making concerted efforts to make sure that they become much more resilient in their defense, and that has created an opportunity for Pakistan. This defense pact that they have signed with Saudi Arabia is a very robust one. It's almost an Article 5 kind of defense pact between NATO countries. Good day, and welcome to my channel, Ebima Mungo's Perspective on Global Affairs. If you're new on this channel, please subscribe. If you have any comments regarding the views and opinions I express in this video, please put them in the comment section. Do well to like and share. Israel's attack on Qatar has changed the Middle East completely. It has shown the Middle Eastern countries that despite several years of investment in American military hardware and several years of strategic relationship, military relationship with the American government, they are not protected whenever it comes to Israel. Israel, over the past few years, have bombed all our neighbors, almost all. Syria, Lebanon, Iran. They have carried on a campaign that has put all the countries on edge. And that attack on Iran changed everything. But it was also the attack on Doha that was most notably that has galvanized the Arabian states, the Gulf states, and they have all come together to try and do something about it. So Saudi Arabia signing a deal with Pakistan. Pakistan is a Muslim country, that is known, but Pakistan has had deep relationship with Saudi Arabia. Pakistan has almost 3 million people working in Saudi Arabia, all across Saudi Arabia, in construction, in several sectors of the Saudi economy, even in their military. They have a lot of instructors and people in the Saudi military. And Pakistan has now become the one who is using this opportunity of Israel's aggression again in the Middle East. As they have seen it as an opportunity, and they offered a nuclear umbrella to Saudi Arabia. It is very important to Saudi Arabia because what Israel has and what Israel has used to become a country with impunity that they could do anything is that everybody in this world knows that Israel has nuclear weapons. In fact, they feel it is estimated that they have about 200 warheads. It may be more. They are expanding their military facility in the Negev Desert. And Pakistan has said, we will give you and we will protect you. Today, they signed this pact, and this pact is one that is very telling. Pakistan has made itself very, very relevant to the countries of the Middle East. They have reinvented themselves. Pakistan, for the past almost 30 years, has suffered. They have had refugee crisis, 10 years of Soviet invasion of Afghanistan affected them because there was a large Afghan refugee that spilled into their country. And then 20 years of American attack on the Taliban's also affected them again. They host a large refugee countries in their poor country, but they've been reinventing themselves. A partnership with China has helped to galvanize them. The Pakistan economic corridor is well known now. It has helped spark economic activities in Pakistan. And the recent engagement they had with India, Operation Sindor, where the Pakistanis showed excellence when they shot down some Rafale planes, showed that they are very well healed as a military force. They benefited very effectively. In fact, Operation Sindor was a coming of age of not only Pakistan, but also the Chinese military hardware. There, Pakistan used Chinese military hardware and inflicted damage to Rafale stock of India. In fact, a few days ago, they gave the tail numbers of the planes that they purportedly shot down. So this visit to Saudi Arabia today, it was one to cement a new relationship. After Operation Sindor, Pakistan has been busy. After the Israel-Iran war, Pakistan had offered that they will give Iran a nuclear umbrella, and Iran promptly went to visit Pakistani Prime Minister. And this emergency meeting in Qatar created greater relations. It created a forum, just like how we saw in the Shanghai Cooperation Organization forum. We also saw the whole Middle Eastern countries set aside everything. They are focused, they are galvanized, they have a clear and present danger in their midst, and that danger is Israel. They've put aside several years and several centuries of acrimony among themselves. One of the things we know the Arabs for is that they never are able to agree among themselves. They've always been very easy to divide because of both their ideological and their religious doctrinal positions that they hold. So they have been very easy to pit one against the other. But this time around, this action of Israel has focused them so much that they are now united. And Pakistan is now the new kid in the block that everybody wants to have something to do with, because in the whole of the Muslim world, Pakistan is the only one that has nuclear weapons. A nuclear weapons, it's when you have a nuclear weapons, you have a deterrent, and that deterrent is the one that nobody comes to play with you or mess around with you. Forgive my language. So Saudi Arabia and Pakistan signed a strategic mutual defense agreement on September 17th during the Pakistan Prime Minister Mohammed Shehbaz Sharif state visit to Riyadh, committing to any threat or any aggression against one nation is as an attack to both, to strengthen joint deterrence and regional stability. The pact, inked by Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman and Sharif at the Al Yamama Palace, draws parallels to NATO's collective defense mechanism and leverages Pakistan's nuclear capability. The visit also included ceremonial honors such as fighter jets escort and 21 guns salute. So we see a situation here where Pakistan is showing that yes, they are very capable, and they are very capable, and now they are now sought after. The Pakistani Prime Minister, as I said recently, is now very, very in demand in the Arab world, and he's making the most of it. Because this is very important to Pakistan. Pakistan has economic challenges, and this will definitely help them in mitigating it, getting funding, getting support. We all know Saudi Arabia has a lot of money, Qatar has a lot of money, and all of them have now come to find out that all that money means nothing. They can be bombed with impunity by Israel, and there's nothing any of them can do. They have also seen that they can't all trust and put all their arms and all their eggs in one basket, the American basket. Many they've started to buy Chinese weaponry, but the Chinese stay away from any conflict and stay away from any crisis. They don't involve themselves. But Pakistan is ready to jump in. Pakistan has a lot of people. They already have a large contingent in Saudi Arabia, a very, very large contingent. And that large contingent can easily be mobilized into the Saudi army. So Mohammed bin Salman, we should remember that Mohammed bin Salman was once the defense minister of Saudi Arabia. He's the de facto king now, he's prince. His father is still alive, but he has changed the country. He has also come to see the clear and present threat. Saudi Arabia was a country that held up against the Abraham Accord. They didn't want to sign that accord with the Israelis. They were complaining so much about the welfare and the well-being of the Palestinians. And because of that, they didn't sign the Abraham Accord while all the other countries were signing it. President Trump tried the best he could to make them sign it, because Saudi Arabia signing the Abraham Accord would have been the biggest validation to that accord, but Saudi Arabia didn't do it, and Saudi Arabia stayed off. But now that they see that they have a clear and present danger, Israel can bomb any of them, remove any of them with impunity. Israel carries out decapitation strikes. They've already carried on decapitation strike in Lebanon. They attempted to remove the whole leadership of Iran, but they were not so successful in that enterprise. And we saw their decapitation strike on Hamas leadership in Qatar and Doha. So this action now has focused all the Arab countries, and Pakistan is the new kid on the block. They are selling off. They've had a confrontation with India that they came off, and they've proven themselves. And suddenly, everybody looks at them differently. It may have also been that we are hearing bin Salman had extensive talks also with Iran. Iran shocked the world. Iran shocked the world with a ballistic missile arsenal, but Iran doesn't have nuclear weapons. And as long as Iran doesn't have nuclear weapons, they don't have that deterrent. Already, in the Greater Israel Project, we already hear that, we already heard Benjamin Netanyahu, or we feel as that Pakistani territory is also some of the territory that that Israel is also hoping to one day annex. Of course, we know of Saudi Arabia and all that. So this has made them know that this is not a joke anymore, and this action today is one that has shown that they really need to do something about it. American protection is not what, despite all their investment, trillions of dollars. If you drive around Saudi Arabia, you will see Patriot missile systems all around, Camis, Abba. You will see them in the deserts everywhere. I live there and I see them, but they have kill switches in America, and we saw what happened in Doha, where despite the vast array of weaponry and vast air base that America has there, Israel could come in with impunity and bomb them. It was Hamas they were bombing now, but Netanyahu has stated categorically that they can take out anybody and nothing anybody can do. We should also point out that it's also unique that it is only Israel that has access to F-35s in the Middle East. I stand to be corrected. I may have to do a little bit more research, but I don't know if the Saudis have it. They could buy it, they could afford it, but I don't know if they will approve it for them to purchase. So that is it. But today also was another era defining the President Trump is in Britain, UK, and he was feted extensively. Oh boy, he was feted, he was wheedled, he was told how important the special relationship between America and Britain is. It used to be that when the king or the representative of King of England visited any of the countries of the Commonwealth, there will be massive celebration. Everybody will go out of their way to do and impress whoever in the royal house was represented. It could have been Prince William, it could be Lady Diana, it could be Prince Harry, but the whole world went to extensive, they bent their back over to impress members of the royal family anytime they visited any of those old colonies. Today, what we saw is what we used to see in countries in Africa, in Australia, in Canada, all those places where Queen Elizabeth used to visit, how they would go out and do everything to try and impress the Queen. Today, the British Kingdom or the British monarchy did all it could to try and impress President Trump. And it was quite a sight. There was a royal ride. There was a royal ride in the carriage. There was banquet, sumptuous banquet. There was both lunch and state banquet. There was display by 1,300 cavalry soldiers, and there was a parade. It was an extensive, sumptuous reception for President Trump. American power was full on display for all to see, and the British have gone, they didn't spare anything. This is a long shot by no means. This shot of making sure that President Trump is sold onto the British, it doesn't leave the British to themselves and leave them to their own devices, especially as they have left Brexit. They've had Brexit and they've left the European Union. They can feel the heat of their isolation, and the relationship between UK and America is so important because so much is going on now in the world geopolitically. And there will be no doubt that they would also want President Trump to weigh in not to leave the Ukraine war. It is not in doubt that President Trump is being fitted so that he can also play a part in the Ukraine war. He shouldn't leave the war. The British really want him to be in that war, and I believe strongly that they will be doing all they can to get him to in that war. I have just one prediction to make regarding that attempt to keep President Trump in the Ukraine war, my prediction is that it will fail. It will fail woefully because, as I've always said, and I stand to be correct, I see a lot, I watch a lot of analysis of this Ukraine war and all the motivations and all the strategies of President Trump. But no one ever points to the fact that President Trump does have memories, bad memory with Ukraine. And he never changes in all the opinions he has held over the years, and he never changes in who he calls a bad person or a good person. He may be accommodating, but he never changes. President Trump has been one of the most consistent people before politics and outside politics, and consistently, I would say, he will not help Ukraine. It's a human thing, not because of anything Europe does, not because of anything the neocons do, just because Ukraine hurt him very badly. They betrayed him. They gave fuel to the Democrats, and through their actions, they impeached him. President Trump is not a fan of Ukraine. He will never support Ukraine. And he may not want them to lose the war with Russia, but he definitely is not going to be the one giving them arms to fight that war. Despite everything that the British king is doing to try and impress upon him, it is not going to work. It's a failed project in my own estimation. But that is not to say Ukraine does not have friends. Regarding this same British thing too, Ukraine did something very, very consequential. Their parliament, the Rada, Verkhovna Rada, ratified the 100-year partnership agreement between Ukraine and Great Britain. It is an agreement, the details of which we really don't know, but generally it is one that anchors Ukraine, and it's a strategic partnership. We tend to hear the Chinese have this strategic partnership, Ukraine and Britain. This was signed recently when Starmer just ran down and signed it, knowing that maybe because of Trump was beginning to make some statements, and Trump was intent on getting Ukraine to pay back, he went and quickly signed this 100-year deal. And this 100-year deal now is one that I really don't know where it stands relative to America's deal for rare earth metals and remuneration, some kind of payback for their support to Ukraine during the war. But this has been ratified in the Congress, in the Ukrainian parliament, and it is more than a treaty. It anchors Ukraine in the Western world, boosts Britain's role in Eastern Europe, and sets a global precedent of supporting Ukraine. Ukraine doesn't lack supporters. Today, again, it received one very prominent visitor. But we should know one thing: Ukraine is very, very popular among female politicians in Europe. All the female politicians who see him or visit him tend to get misty-eyed. They get doe-eyed in his presence. How he does it, nobody knows. I really don't know, but that's just what I've come to observe. He is very popular and at this point in time, Europe does have a lot of female influential people. In the European Union, 4 very influential people are women. Ursula von der Leyen, the head of the EU Parliament, is also a woman. The head of the European Bank, ECB, is a woman, Christine Lagarde. And already we know of High Representative of Foreign Affairs, Kaja Kallas. Her own designation is High Representative. I don't know what that means, but it's different from all the other 27 commissioners in that commission. She's High Representative. Britain has done a lot for Ukraine. Britain has been making sure that they give them aid, give them military support, give them training. But beyond that, too, they also are at the forefront of giving Ukraine most of the monies from frozen assets. They even want more of that frozen asset given to Ukraine. So their advocacy for Ukraine is very strong. It's not ending. It's not going to end. And this agreement may just be solidifying it. So today, one of the women who is beholden to Zelensky visited, and that woman is the head of the parliament of the EU. She visited Ukraine today, and she met with Zelensky. It was a good one. They talked a lot, and it has to do with opening of the European Union Parliament office in Ukraine. But President Zelensky took the opportunity to say that Ukraine is fighting Russia on behalf of Europe. The war between Russia is one that is staving off the bad intent of Russia against Europe. That is how he sees it, and that is how he presented it. And he put it out in a tweet that he's very happy to have welcomed her. It was a very happy one. The lady was very, very touched to be very close to President Zelensky. Enjoys unparalleled reverence from these ladies, and recently the Danish prime minister was with him, and now she visited, and he says, "I'm glad to welcome today in Ukraine the fourth visit during the years of war by Madam President of the European Parliament, Roberta Metsola. We discussed key topics that exist between Ukraine and European institutions, support for negotiations regarding Ukraine's accession to the European Union, and the importance of opening first cluster as soon as possible, sanctions against Russia, and adoption of 19 package of sanctions, Russian assets, and also social issues, the construction of shelters for schools, Europe's support for our program of free meals." It goes on and on and on. It was one where, as I've said, another doting and admiring European commissioner fell under the spell and charm of the very handsome Volodymyr Zelensky. We should not forget that before he became the president and changed his image very dramatically, President Zelensky was a clean-shaven, smooth comedian, very, very likable. He was loved by the Ukrainian people. But then he had a very clean shave. It made him look very young. So in these years of war, he had to put on the persona of a hardened war hero. And now we see him sporting a beard and putting on some. He does go to the gym now, so it supports his image as a war hero. So one other lady has fallen. We don't know whether it is the spell and the allure of his power or the charm he exudes as a Winston Churchill-like person. But we should not forget that Winston Churchill was obese. He drank a lot. He smoked a lot, and he just didn't even care much about that. Same thing with Boris Johnson. The British don't seem to care that much about the image part of it, as long as they had an empire at that time. So that was what happened today. But regarding this war, all the activities the Russians are doing is still going on in Zapad 2025. And today the Russians tried out the deployment of their Oreshnik. That Oreshnik is so mystical because they just used it once, and everything now is left to conjecture. What else can he do to you? What kind of damage did he do? Nobody agreed to talk about the damage. They just chose one old weapons manufacturing facility deep in the Dnipro Prokops and just destroyed it. An old Soviet very, very fortified weapons manufacturing facility. And that one attack by the Oreshnik and did them some damage that frightens the soul. There's no need to talk about it. It was so devastating that Zelensky's post, when it came out, was that an intercontinental ballistic missile had been used on them. It's like you slap somebody and then he tells the person that please hold his hand. The man just used a hammer on me. So it took the Americans, they looked at it and they said, no, they know it about this weapon. It was being developed. It's not an intercontinental ballistic missile. It's a new weapon system. We don't know anything about it. So the Oreshnik is very mystical. The Oreshnik has frightened the jibbers out of all the military planners in the Western world. And it is now something that was quickly deployed to Belarus and it was tested today. But already we are beginning to see signs that the Russians, President Putin, is already thinking way beyond this war. He's thinking about the post-war economic stimulation of his country. We see how at the federal level, at the higher governmental level, China has distinguished itself particularly from countries like America and Britain. What have they done? They have invested very heavily in infrastructure, and one of those infrastructures that they are now world leaders and world beaters is high-speed train. High-speed train in 2008 when I visited Beijing, they barely had one. I think they just barely were opening a line then. I didn't even know about it. But now they have almost 50,000 miles, kilometers of high-speed trains in almost all the cities that have 500,000 people. They make it a point of duty to try and get those train lines into cities that have 500,000 at least. There may be more. But it has become something that has stimulated interconnectivity between all the regions of China. Now the Russians want to experiment with that and deploy their own high-speed train network. Russian Prime Minister Mishustin has announced that Putin has approved that what will be Europe's largest ever high-speed rail project, over 4,500 kilometers of new lines linking Moscow to St. Petersburg. Construction starts this month. In fact, it will connect Minsk, Rostov, Krasnodar, Sochi, Nizhny, Novgorod, and Kazan. There's also one city that is too long. I don't want to attempt to, before my Russian viewers here get angry with me, but it's quite so domestically, the trains will be produced domestically and will run up to 400 kilometers per hour. That is technology that is only available to the Chinese. What collaboration they may be having with China, we don't know yet, but there's closer relationship. Today I saw the images of the first group of visitors, tourists from Russia who will be visiting China, who are visiting China without a visa. China just opened a visa-free regime to the Russians, took Putin by surprise. He was touched. He said he did not even know that that was coming. It happened during his visit to Russia during the Shanghai Cooperation Organization meeting in China, in Shanghai, sorry, his visit to China. And then I think it was also just after the parade where China laid out a spectacular display of military hardware and military excellence in their parade. So we see that the Russians are thinking like chess players. They're already thinking about, because one of the criticisms they have against Russia is that what will they do post-war? We know what happened with America post-war. The military-industrial complex, they could never shake it. Eisenhower did warn about the military-industrial complex, but they have never been, since 1945, been able to shake the influence of the military-industrial complex. They have had to feed that big complex and continued to prosecute war all across the world. Because they are prosecuting war and because war is in the domain of the federal government of America isn't a part of infrastructure development as you will find in China. So all these world-beating facilities we hear about, largest deployment of any infrastructure you can think of, from the Three Gorges Dam to all those things, you don't hear again about them. You heard about the Colorado Boulder Dam when they had the Great Depression and when they had leaders like Roosevelt, but it's not like that anymore. Now we have a situation where over $8 trillion of American wealth was expended in wars all across the world. But not so. Russia wants to look inwards and use some of the profits it's making for the well-being of its people. Already we know that some of the piping in the power of Siberia too, some of it will pass through parts of Russia and send gas into some parts of Russia in that power of Siberia too, that will first ultimately move from the Yamal and pass through Russia, get distributed within some parts of Russia, get into Mongolia, and then ultimately end up in the northern part of China. So, but Russia too doesn't lack friends, and one of the great friends of Russia already we know is India, and India asserted itself recently when it was an attempt to punish her for this friendship with Russia. India took made some powerful movements. First to the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, where the visuals of Russia, China, and India was frightening to a lot of all the American policymakers, that this is cultivation of India that had happened over 10 years was lost in a trade war that Trump initiated. Trump has been making all efforts to get back to good relationship with India, and but to show you the influence India now has in the world because of this, they are standing up to American bullying, as the Chinese will always say, is the fact that during this 75th birthday of President Modi, the whole world has tried to show how very close they are. Netanyahu says, my dear friend, we have accomplished much in India in your life. One thing we should know is that now India is challenged as to where to get arms, because most of the arms that Russia is making is used in the military, in the special military operations. So they have expanded and added Israel. They have quite a lot of extensive business dealings now with Israel. Not only arms, but Israel has some competencies in cybersecurity and how to monitor the control their populace. Those kind of spy, especially for WhatsApp and all these other all these messaging apps. Israel has an app called Pegasus, and they can use it to read everything in your WhatsApp message in your phone, no matter however you encrypt it. And that's a technology sought by so many people. Bill Gates too also sent his message to Modi. Putin, already we know, sent his message to Modi. Italian Prime Minister, and most notably, the first person who sent his message to Modi and that we all got to know was Trump before he left for Britain. He sent a message to Modi celebrating his 75th birthday. And by all these actions, even Ursula von der Leyen too talked about the great relationship India has with the EU, because the whole premise of Trump's sanctions these days, he has flipped it and said that the Europeans should also not buy sanction. They should also put sanctions on India, but that would be suicide for the Europeans. Ursula von der Leyen stated it very clearly that their relationship with India is very solid and it will continue to grow. And Modi has shown that sometimes it is very important that you have powerful friends. But we should all know that all this is because of the reality of the multipolar world. The reality that China is now a powerful friend or foe. The reality that Russia is a powerful friend and foe. And that if anybody gets into the camp of this powerful friend or foe, get into the camp of China and get into the camp of Russia, it gives that camp a powerful leverage. In those days of the unipolar world, your best interest was to be close to America. But in these days of the multipolar world, you have alternative. That alternative can either be Russia or China. But in the case of India, it can be both. This is where I end my video for today. If you're new to my channel, please subscribe. If you have any comments regarding the opinions I just expressed, please put them in the comment section. If you think that King Charles III is going to succeed in turning and focusing President Trump's mind on the Ukraine war, put it in the comment section. Whatever you think about this new Pakistani sense of stardom, their newfound sense of purpose, their importance to the Middle Eastern project and the Middle Eastern security architecture, please put them in the comment section. If you're new to this channel, please subscribe. Do well to like and share. Until I see you in my next video. Goodbye.